Welcome to the July 18th edition, a return to our home of the PFF Forecast. Got a great show for you today. We're going to do a couple things. We actually had a delay in here, so you and I were just chopping it up, and we got on the conversation of if we had to make one Super Bowl bet, who would it be? So we're going to talk about that at the top. We're going to do some coverage versus pass rush today because we're gearing up for a draft, a defensive player draft to happen this Wednesday. We're going to do a couple of props that we like because we got to feed the people, and then recommendations to close it out. Let's rock. Buddy, it's good to see you, man.
Speaking of feeding the people, that Brooke Lopez moderately low rebound prop hit again last night.
Oh, is that what you've been rolling with?
I mean, like, if they gave me 4.5, I'm just going to bet
Was
the
that
big.
what it was?
Yes.
You're not gonna. You're feeding yourself. You're not feeding me.
The big guy.
I'm over here.
He only
starving.
got 5. He had none in the first quarter. He had 4 in the second quarter, and he had like one random one in the fourth quarter. He got to 5. He it's been low. Like, I guess he's a drifter though, right? Like if who was the commenter that told Chris Webber to get his ass under the basket once he became a floater? That's Brooke Lopez. But I feel like it's actually
was
like
that Bill Walton, by the way.
No, Walton was like high on LSD.
He was the best. Bill Walton in the booth was amazing. So you bet on Brooke Lopez rebound prop. I bet on my Suns, our Suns. I haven't not bet on the Suns in forever. And, of course, the Suns get out to that huge lead.
Did you at least buy back?
So I'm sitting there. I'm going, okay, the Bucks are like 6-1 right now. I'm like, I couldn't do it. So I didn't do it. Of course, the Suns come back. Luckily, or the Bucks come back. Luckily, the Suns at one point live were plus 6.5.
I got that too.
So I bought a lot of that, and so that saved me a little bit.
That was helpful at the end. It got close because I have some Bucks to win the series. And so, like, you know, you're kind of rooting on, then it landed really well. Giannis, of course. So yesterday on DraftKings, they had like a booster to like Giannis's over was like plus 150. And our intern, Zach Drapkin, brilliant intern, was like, he's been betting these like all summer. And he was like, Giannis is like 4 for 11 from the free throw line, 0 for 3 in the last like minute. And he's like, this is the worst beat I've ever had. I wonder if DraftKings pays it out because I do know they had a double
double
on him back a couple weeks ago, and when he got injured, they paid it. So maybe they'll feel bad for the people. But yeah, that was
about that.
I have similar remorse, and I tweeted about this. No one cares, but like our guys, FC Cincinnati, a soccer team, we're up 4-2 in with 45 minutes into the game or something like that, and I was like, there's no way they win this game, and I was too lazy to go and bet the other side, which in a soccer game, 3 goals is like
a lot.
Yeah. Of course, they blow it in a way that only like the Falcons or Chargers could.
By the way, I saw you
surmise.
I saw you tweet about FC Cincinnati and just moved on with my day. Somehow.
Well, I told you I've been sick for most of the end of the week, so I might have been high on Nike.
Still sick. Yeah, the odds have changed a little bit. I think Kansas City, did they open like plus 350?
No, they were 5 and then 550 and then 5 again.
Okay, so
there is a transition that's being made at DraftKings from Canby, who was their odds provider. They are transitioning more to an in-house approach to. So there are some numbers that have changed. A lot of win totals. So like randomly right before our sale last week, they changed a lot of them. And that's the reason. It's not that like the market's moving a ton. It's that they are transitioning into doing more like what Circa does, which is like making their own, setting their own, and not having to pay.
So the lines right now at DraftKings sportsbook, Chiefs are 5-1, the Bucks are 6-1, the Bills are 11-1, the Rams are 13-1, the Ravens and the Niners are 14-1, the Browns 16-1, the Packers 20-1, the Seahawks and the Saints 25-1, Titans and Colts 28-1, Chargers are 30-1, along with the Cowboys, the Dolphins and the Patriots, both
and Denver
35-1. Our Steelers, Cardinals, and my Washington football team are 40-1. Vikings 50-1. The Bears are 60-1. The Giants are 80-1. The Falcons are 80-1. The Panthers are 80-1. The Raiders are 80-1, and that's where we'll stop.
That's where we'll stop because no one after that has a chance.
No one is reading anything after that.
Cold takes.
By the way, By the way, I'll let you go first. If you are looking for results from our simulations, you can go to pff.com. Right now, sale40 is the promo code, gets you 40% off. And with an Edge subscription, you can read all of that content where we talk about best bets from you and Ben Brown wrote it up, best bets in every single division, what the simulations say, our win totals tracker, all that stuff. So you can stay up to date on that. But also 40% off, like you should take advantage of that and get the props tool with an elite subscription. I cannot wait to feast all year.
Yeah,
we got to talk more about college props. You told me about this, that those are like going to become more widely available. I'm excited.
I can't wait. I honestly, I think college DFS, college props, those kind of things I think are going to have a good year this year. The interesting thing is that makes them a little quirky is that they're not available in every state. So for example, you can't play college DFS, for example, in Ohio, weirdly. But nonetheless, I mean, looking at this,
I have one bet.
I have one bet and one shot, one opportunity. I don't think I can go with any team that's less than 20-1. I just don't think there's good value there. I think Kansas City will be the favorite for the Super Bowl every year for a decade. At this point, the ship has sailed there. Buy them on Simbull if you want to. It's a good one. Okay, here's one.
By the way, I have two that I'm oscillating between. And it's tough. This is tough.
I think this team has a lot of flaws, more flaws than they had last year. There's obviously I'm not going to go with Green Bay. I wanted to go Green Bay, but I'm not going to do it. Sorry. This is tough. All right, I'm going Seattle 25-1.
Comes back, says I will not bet anything that's greater than 20-1.
No, I said less. So I'm not taking the Bills at 11-1 are not a good value. The Bills are that good, but 11-1, you're paying a premium for them.
Agreed.
The Rams are not good enough to be 13-1. The Ravens, the Niners are not good enough to be 14-1.
Yep.
Browns, I mean, we're extrapolating one half of one good season for Baker Mayfield. Packers have I like the Packers at 20-1, but I do like the Packers too.
Okay. The Packers were mine.
Yeah.
I was debating between two teams. Since you have expounded upon the Packers at 20-1, I will say just this. So 20-1, break even there is about just less than 5%. This is a Aaron Rodgers play, right? So the market is hedging that Aaron Rodgers might not be a Packer or might not play the whole season for the Packers and what that does to them. Our simulations have Aaron Rodgers playing, which I believe may not be a stone cold lock, but I'm very much in the Aaron Rodgers is playing quarterback.
In the Good Judgment Project, which is run by Penn and the Wisdom of the Crowds people, they currently have a 1% chance that Rodgers signs with another team, which I think that's a little low, but just to give you a little bit of an idea.
I would agree there. So our simulations have Green Bay winning the Super Bowl over 10% of the time, just over 10% of the time. And I agree with that. Here, it's not hard to get to that place. You've talked a lot about Matt LaFleur and what he's done with that offense. To think that Aaron Rodgers would come back and then just not be great, I think is absurd as well. He's got so many players there that he cares and wants to win with. Ultimately, it will be about winning with his teammates, his coach, who I believe he still loves. And the fans, they're going to rally around him. So I really like that, right? I think that's a great value. Let me tell you, can you guess who my second team was?
The Chicago Bears.
My guy. Yeah, I love the Bears at 60-1. I bet them at 50-1. I bet them at 60-1.
They're now 4-1. They're still 4-1 to win that division.
Yeah.
I think the hard part with the Bears is they got weaker in some important places. They got weaker at corner with Fuller leaving. At linebacker, I still think they're going to be linebacker. Their front seven is going to have to play amazingly. Yeah. But you look at this division that they're in, the Vikings front, everybody likes the Vikings approach to the offensive line, and I agree. I think 5 years from now we'll all be happy at this idea of Wyatt Davis and Christian Darrisaw. But year one, replacing an established player like Reef with Darashaw, I don't think it's going to be what Vikings fans think it's going to be. I think with Green Bay, you lose Corey Linsley, one of the most valuable offensive linemen in the NFL. You didn't even try to re-sign him, which is really tough. Bakhtiari, there's a chance that he won't start the season healthy. That was the reason I relented on Green Bay initially. I'm thinking you lose that. A lot of the things that were great for you a season ago were unstable things like corner and safety of Alexander and Amos. Sure. And then here's my take on Rodgers. Rodgers, this is why I like this as a long shot. I'm never going to bet Rodgers' team to win this division right now. I think at minus 125, it could get bad. And it could even get bad with Rodgers in there. And here's why. Like 2018, 2019, Rodgers was not a great quarterback. He was a very good quarterback, but he was not the elite player he was last season ago.
True.
And we're all sort of handicapping that as
a return to glory.
A return to glory, as opposed to, I think, a smart thing to do would be to average the last 3 years and say he comes out of the wash as the fifth best quarterback in the NFL, possibly. And if that's the case, are they?
I need Nagler here.
Yeah, because I look at the division
unfair.
and I look at the division and think it sucks. So I could totally see them doing okay.
Yes,
but I don't know if Rodgers is going to repeat last year. I think it's almost impossible.
Repeat as an MVP, I think that's going to be very hard. Repeat in terms of the numbers he had, I agree with you. But I'm going to take the other side of Bakhtiari not starting the season healthy and go, I don't care if he starts the season healthy. In fact, I actually don't care if Rodgers starts the season either.
Yeah.
Go on, because of what you just said. The division isn't very good.
Yeah.
I want those guys in great shape at the end of the season. And I would say this about Aaron Rodgers. I think last year, we talked about this with Nagler on multiple podcasts. It seemed that what he found was playing in rhythm was something that was core to his game. And that to me is something that will transition well from season to season. Well, and I would say this, the only thing that I could see is actually more players other than Devontae Adams finding a role within that rhythm that you go, oh, wow, this offense can be more multiple. Because to me, that was the huge issue for them in that game against Tampa Bay. And remember that game against Tampa Bay. That was a disaster of a game from a coaching perspective and from like a blunder perspective, right? Obviously, everyone remembers the kick the field goal at the end of the game. But remember at halftime, right before the half?
Yeah.
I mean, Kevin King blunder. Like Aaron Rodgers played as well, if not better, and he graded better than Brady in that game. People will forget that, of course. I am all in on Aaron Rodgers being able to, maybe not in the same way that it was great, but be just as good as he was.
I'm gonna promote something that one of our interns, Zach, who I mentioned earlier.
You've already talked about this.
Wrote about this, but this is from last week Monday. Time sense pressure and the Simpsons paradox of evasive quarterbacks. This is Rodgers to a T, right? Because he talks about Russell Wilson in this, which is to say Wilson is amazing without pressure, and he's amazing when pressured. But it's the David Justice, Derek Jeter thing. The composition of the two made it so that we're sitting there being like, well, what the fuck's wrong with this team then? Like if they can't win. And I think that's like when you look at some of the majorly highlight plays of Rodgers' career, it was prior to 2015, it was out of structure. You know, we talk about Mahomes' arm, but I think Rodgers' arm is one of the best in league history and one of the best as far as off platform and stuff like that. And it was always like he could make those plays out of structure because he was dealing with, at one time, he had Jennings, Driver, Jordy Nelson, Jermichael Finley, James Jones, Randall Cobb. And so there's always somebody open. And then Devontae Adams was his number 3 receiver, the second to last time he won the MVP. And as he's gotten older and his target and his playmakers have become mainly one player, he's still amazing out of structure. But I think what he found out last year was, I have to play more in structure, so I only save my brilliance for when it's necessary, and I don't go out of my way to do that. And that to me, if that carries over, and then they get some play out of Armani Rodgers from Clemson or somebody like, they get some other secondary player to step up, I agree with you that they can be great.
By the way, everyone should go read that article. I remember proofreading it with Zach. Zach sent it over to me, and I really enjoy that type of analysis because it paints a very simple picture of how important it is to stay in a clean pocket and like get rid of the football. And you can see things that are Herculean, but giving yourself more opportunities to be Herculean in those aspects is not necessarily good for your team.
You only want to perform in bad circumstances when you have no other choice.
Yes.
You don't want to put yourself in bad circumstances, even if you're good at it, because as he showed in the article, it's still negative EV to play with pressure. Like you shouldn't do it. You shouldn't
wish it on yourself more than you have to. And it's interesting. Mahomes is one of those guys who has been able to avoid taking sacks at a high rate, in those situations.
I'm about to go about the Packers here.
And one of those reasons is that he's got those receivers that are always there. I was going to make one other point about the Packers, and I forget what it was, but Packers at 20-1 is the one I would bet. I'll give you so the Bears at 60-1, and the reason I would say that is you've got to have a quarterback who's amazing. And if you're thinking about a rookie who could come on the scene and be amazing in terms of the ability to run the ball and throw the ball, Justin Fields is that guy. But you know who else I was looking at? Were the Dallas Cowboys at 30-1.
I almost said Dallas too. I mean, Dallas has the high-end quarterback play that you
said Seattle. Like, I would rather bet the Cowboys with Dak Prescott at 30-1 than Seattle with Russell Wilson at 25-1. I have more faith in Dak Prescott than I do Russell Wilson.
They also have more targets too. I mean,
I know that's crazy to say for a lot of people, but what Dak Prescott has continued to show from a passing perspective is amazing.
And then there is a gauntlet that you have to go through in the NFC West. Mm-hmm. I think Wilson's better than Dak, but I don't think by enough to overcome. The problem
I think that gap changes, by the way, this year. I think Prescott.
The problem is, and like this is, I think we were fans of the McCarthy move. I do think McCarthy could go either way this year. I do think that they could be really good, and he and Kellen Moore do a terrific job, and everything. All this talk about him being the first coach fired looks silly at the end of the season. But there's also this idea that I don't think the players ever like grow sour on Pete Carroll, right? Like for all of Carroll's faults, I think he does do a pretty good job of rally. Like he's not a good tactician, but I think he is a good like a player's coach type of thing. Mm-hmm. But when you're betting something that's right-tailed like this, you don't really care about the glob in the middle, which is, Carroll gets everybody to play really well and they win 12 games, and then the playoffs they self-destruct because they're chasing a different banner, which is we establish the run. Okay. I think Wilson's underrated right now. I think Wilson has his head on straight about wanting to play efficient offense. Like I think last year radicalized him a little bit, hopefully. Mm-hmm. With Dak, you have the injury issues. You have obviously
what injury issues.
Dak?
I mean, like where he's going to re-break his leg.
No, but you do see it is going to be like a little bit of an adjustment, right?
Agree. That's why I'm betting Tampa Bay week 1.
Yeah. No,
there's a difference.
And Dallas has an easy schedule after like week 3 or so.
And it's all about where you're at the end of the year too, man. So
good call.
This was a fun discussion. Let's do, by the way, I was just looking at the quarterback annual, which you get for 40% off with Sale 40. And it's what I would tell you to do if you're interested in looking at that Russ-Dak comparison. Go look at their performance against the blitz. I think that's very telling about Prescott. Go look at their sack rate. Go look at what they do against pressure and their sack rate there. Go read that article about time since pressured. I think it'll really open your eyes on some of that. Let's hit this coverage versus pass rush discussion. We're going to draft defensive players on Wednesday. We're figuring out who we want to come in to draft with us because I think it'd be more fun if we do that. We're going to talk coverage versus pass rush. Wow, not that again. In just a second, but a few things to tell you about. We've mentioned it a few times. Save 40 sale. That's the promo code on pff.com. You get 40% off any PFF subscription. So I've already mentioned a couple things here, but with an Edge subscription, which will cost you as little as $5.99 a month with this promo code, You will get obviously all the premium content at PFF unlocked for you. That includes win totals tracker, all the betting simulation content, all the props content, and it's about to get a lot better. We're bringing on some new people. It's going to be a lot of fun. Plus the fantasy football draft guide, which we're going to talk about soon. We're going to do a fantasy pod in the near future. You get the rankings, projections, the whole shebang. The first edition of the 2022 NFL draft guide, which we're going to talk about a little bit later in this podcast. And of course, with an elite subscription that is 40% off, you'll get all the betting content, all the betting tools, which are getting a nice refresh this year. There's going to be some cool stuff for you. I promise you, you will want to make sure you check those out. So go use promo code SAVE40 on pff.com. Also, new to the sponsorship docket here is Fantrax. Fantrax NFL Fantasy Football League Manager. It's the most customizable, easy to use, and feature-rich platform. You know I love rich features in the entire industry, and PFF is gearing up to play our leagues on Fantrax this season. We're going to do it, I promise. So choose one of the different features, go dive in, take a look at them. They've got trade scenarios, multi-team trades that you can do, which is like banana land. You can't do that on Yahoo. I wish you could. Player salary and contract options. I remember having to try and like festoon those together because like a lot of the places that you play don't have those. And so you're like doing it in a Google sheet and all this shit. It's awesome. So go check out Fantrax. I'm really excited. It answers a lot of things that I've been hoping to get as a commissioner of a fantasy league that hates doing all that shit, but loves playing fantasy football. So go check it out at fantrax.com/PFF and get a chance to win an autographed jersey from your favorite player, Josh Allen. He's our favorite player. He's our guy. Last thing to tell you about Simbull, Simbull. Use promo code PFF there at simbull.app/PFF. Deposit $10.
Always good for you to remind me to look at how my account's
Yeah, I need you to tell me. And get a free year of PFF Edge with that $10 deposit. That's a redonkulous deal. And you can go, we talked about some teams that you might want to go buy some shares in. Who have you bought recently? How's your portfolio looking?
You got some Iowa Hawkeyes, some
to
Coastal Carolina Chanticleers, who we'll talk about a little bit later. Yeah, man, I can't wait for them to start playing games and getting those dividends to come in, George.
Just start rolling on in. Yeah, you get paid dividends when your team wins, and you can obviously trade them like stocks. So go check it out at simbull.app/PFF. And now, coverage versus pass rush. We've long talked about the importance of coverage over pass rush, and often we've drilled that down to individual players that play coverage being more valuable than individual players that rush the passer. How would you summarize your current thinking on that?
Yeah, and this is part of the whole, distrust people who are like, trust somebody who's in search for the truth, distrust somebody who thinks they have it. Like, I think my thought process now is that I think coverage units are more valuable than pass rush units. I think if you can't cover as a group, you're not going to be able to play defense well. If you can't pass rush, I think you can manufacture it. I don't think you can manufacture coverage very well because I think that the offense very much
isolate very well.
The offense can sort of work around that in most cases, not all cases, of course. And like that's the edge cases are where it's fun. If I were picking players, though, I think this is where I come back and say the instability of coverage, whether it's how we measure it or how folks at the Big Data Bowl measured it, sort of the same thing. It ends up becoming the instability of coverage makes it really tough for me to say if I had to pick one player in the future, I wouldn't take, let's say, like an edge player. I don't think I'd take a linebacker. I don't think I'd take an interior player unless it was Aaron Donald. J.J. Watt back in the day when he played interior, also very good. But I probably would take an edge over a corner if I only had to take one player, which is different than what I've almost always said. Which, and again, it's mostly because of the things we've learned. Having an opinion, seeing how it evolves over time, getting new data. So we've done additional studies; they haven't been published yet. Looking at sort of how players play off the ball, how players, create and isolate space and all that kind of stuff. It's to me, I still think like we haven't found the greatest way to evaluate coverage. And as such, we do a really good job of evaluating pass rushers, and their goodness is pretty stable year to year. The whole thing has made me believe, and this, let's talk to Nagler again. The whole thing has made me believe, I think, to a little bit, that defense matters less than we think. Like defense is very much like the.
What do you mean by that?
Like, so Stephon Gilmore, for example.
Yep.
Like Stephon Gilmore is amazing, but his impact on the New England Patriots is probably parts him being awesome and parts them playing dog shit quarterbacks in the AFC East for years.
Okay.
You see what I'm saying? Xavier Howard last year had a tremendous year. The team played really well, but it sure as hell helped to play Jared Goff. And it sure as hell helped to play.
Hey, his best play of the entire season
was on Mahomes.
It was on Mahomes.
It was Mahomes' worst game of the year for much of the time. Like, so to me, whereas I think we've really done a good job of isolating and saying, so I tweeted out Brian Burns had the same number of pressures as I think Khalil Mack did. Khalil Mack had a better grade because teams were getting the ball more quickly. And so like Brian Burns didn't have as many wins that didn't translate into pressures. And like, I think we're all mature enough to understand that part.
Right, of course.
And so we'll say that even though this one statistic for Brian Burns was as good as it was for Khalil Mack was better last year. Brian Burns was still very, very, very good. Khalil Mack was a little bit better. That nuance, I think, is still a little bit, we're still a ways away from the nuance for coverage players. And so when we see somebody like Xavier Howard have 10 interceptions, I think our initial guess is to be like, oh, he was extremely valuable. It's probably going to regress. And I don't know if we're quite good enough yet at saying this is the signal, this is the noise, and this is how big they are.
Right.
We basically at this point really know that the noise component is big. We just don't know how big.
Okay. No, and I think it's a really good point. And for people that are new listening to this, where this comes from is basically, to boil it down really, really basically, is okay, what's more predictive of winning football games? Being really good in the coverage space or being really good from a pass rush space? And coverage wins out. But that's, as you said, units versus units, right? And one thing that's also important to think about is, how do we measure coverage performance? And at PFF, we grade every single player on every single play. And for coverage players, we are really isolating on plays where they are targeted, right? And that is something that we're continually improving in our process, but it's not one that we've gotten to the point where we say, yeah, I feel that this is, while it might be the best measure of coverage performance, that it is doing the same level of measurement as it's doing for pass rushers. So here's where I'm at with it. And this was going to be a question. This was the question I was going to ask you. Do you think, so actually I should back up. Individual grade and individual performance for coverage players versus pass rushers are drastically different in stability. Coverage players see their performance as we measure it oscillate tremendously from year to year. Pass rushers, we feel much better about what has happened in the past being what's happening in the future. But do you believe that that's actually the case with how coverage players are playing? In other words, we believe that Xavier Howard's performance as we measure it will regress next year. Maybe you agree that is the case for like Jalen Ramsey, let's say. Do you think that means they're actually playing worse?
That's a great question. So you're basically asking, is there some of this noise that's reducible, right? Like, should we stop trying? The answer is no. Like, I think, and we've done studies using, there was the big data bowl. We had access to the tracking data. Timo Riske and I have worked, at this for a while now. And you can make metrics that are more stable. They still don't. So here's the harmful thing, like not the harmful thing, but the disheartening thing if you want to measure coverage better. You can get a stability boost on coverage by using the tracking data, by using other forms of data. Even like we're starting to chart off the ball stuff now. I think inspired by a lot of this. You're going to get gains there. You can also get gains on pass rusher ability by adding in tracking data level stuff. Sure. And so like it's sort of like the race right? Where the derivative for understanding coverage is higher.
Yep.
But the derivative for understanding pass rush is also positive.
Is positive.
So like you're still, so it's not like it's gaining ground, but I don't know. In my opinion, I think the way in which coverage is played as the opposite of an attacking style of play, I don't think that performance as we can measure it there is ever going to get as stable as something that's an attacking thing like pass rush. Can we get the gap to shrink? Yes. I still think it's inherent to coverage though that it's just going to be more unstable. Because think about this, like a pass rusher, they're the best athletes. Like they're the best athletes on.
They're like LeBron James.
Yeah. They're like LeBron. They're the best athletes.
I mean, Myles Garrett is absolutely out of his mind.
And you notice like how they get older, we track this with the tracking data too. As they get older, their get off speeds aren't as good, but their technique is amazing, and then they can win. Yep. I think cornerback, I just think is so much more sensitive to the instabilities of football, which is you get nicked up, right? You have I think, and again, like my playing experience is meaningless, but like it was a lot easier to play injured at tight end than it was to play injured at wide receiver. Like the closer to the line of scrimmage was just easier to play injured because a lot of it, I think it's extremely tough to play cornerback.
And think about this. This is something that I think Darius Butler talked to us about. Wide receivers are getting shoveled in left and right.
Yeah.
You're facing fresh legs every fucking time. But on the other side, tackles are staying in there the whole time, and you're
rotating defensive
rotating in, whereas a corner, you're out there all the time. I've thought about this a ton, and I'm going to tease our episode on Wednesday by saying I have a couple of arguments that I'm leaving in the holster for where I'm going to go with my pick. Yeah. I want to give you the first pick, okay?
Okay.
I want to give you the first pick. I either want the second or the third pick.
Okay.
Because I'm still not totally sure, but I have a few things about where I think the league is going, about where I think measurement for coverage needs to go. And a few things on the athlete side of things from both a pass rusher perspective and from a quarterback perspective. So you'll have to tune in on Wednesday to hear that.
I think so. Like to summarize, I think that both of us still believe that coverage units are more valuable than pass rush units.
Yes.
But at the individual player level, if you are only able to buy one player, I do think
we'll find out.
Well, yeah.
On Wednesday. Actually, you had something really interesting that you mentioned.
This is actually a question that Anthony Tresh, one of our brilliant analysts.
He's the Tyreek Hill fan in the group.
Yeah. I feel like I missed a humongous opportunity that day just to tweet out, I'm more of a Moss fan. Like if I would, but Anthony's great. Anthony works extremely hard. He asks good questions. He's exactly what you want in an analyst. And he asked me a question the other day, because he had done a little bit of study with coverage versus pass rush at the college level, and he had a very good idea to separate group of five and power five. I was like, oh, that's interesting. Why would it be different? Coverage units and pass rush units are about equally correlated with expected points allowed and basically wins too, but like those are correlated too. Outcomes are equally correlated to pass rush grade and coverage grade in Power 5 during the PFF era, so 2014 to now. At the group of five level, so think like Cincinnati, the AAC, the Mountain West, all like the coverage is more correlated than pass rushes. Why would that be the case?
I've thought about this over the past 30 minutes, and I have a take.
Okay.
You just mentioned athletes. The great athletes at edge rusher, I believe, are maybe one of the most easy to pinpoint at the high school level. And so I think
also college to pro.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I think that makes, if I'm saying which, because obviously Power 5, you think about the SEC, like they go out and get the best players. Which ones do they actually get the best players at? It's, in my opinion, on the defensive line and on the offensive line, where it's actually more so defensive line, where it's like, hey, can I identify this amazing athlete? Because they're all raw at that point. Technique is something that, like, I mean,
Yeah.
Who knows at that point? Whereas from a coverage perspective, there's a lot more opportunity to teach those things. You have players who are coming in and also playing receivers who are not as athletic.
Yeah.
And so to me, that would be the reason we see that difference in group of 5.
Yeah. That's probably, well, yeah, I would say.
You have any others?
I would say that why it's similar, that in the NFL, you're never going to beat another team purely because of talent. Mm-hmm. It's almost always tact. It's almost always that kind of thing. At the college football level, I think a group of 5, almost all the talent is about the same. I mean, Cincinnati over here, they're more talented than the average AAC team.
Bear, sure.
But like, it's sort of more like, this sounds silly, but it's sort of more like the NFL in that everybody's dealing with the same deck of cards. Mm-hmm. And so like, whereas at the college level, I do think that there are just at the Power 5 level, I do think there are just players who are way more talented than other teams. Like, I think the tail is way fatter there, let's say. That isn't to say that there aren't great group of 5 edge players. Like Marcus Davenport was from UTSA. Ed Oliver was from Houston. Like there's been a number of like group of 5 players, but it's like Alabama's throwing out every, Jonathan Allen, Dalvin Tomlinson, like, they're Tim Williams ended up not being an NFL player, but he was a 4-4 guy coming off the edge for them on just 30 snaps a game. Like and so yeah, I do think it's just like sort of a talent disparity thing, which is not true at group of 5. I think group of 5, most of the team, I mean, Akron sucks, but most of the teams are like fairly equally yoked, and it's about coaching and about, and that again could bring up the whole idea of like how much of coverage is results based too. Like,
Well, here's what I was going to say is that at the NFL level, I don't necessarily know that the reasons that they are that way in both group of 5 and the NFL have to be the same, right? So like in the NFL, for me, one of the reasons that it's such a weak link system, right, in coverage is that NFL quarterbacks are so fucking smart that if you roll out Humpty Dumpty over there and try and hide him in coverage, you are roasted. Like, you have no shot. Like, Tom Brady will find that guy and he'll bring in a guy at fullback who will then beat you on a route and he'll get you. That's the type of thing that you'll see at the NFL level. And at the group of 5 level, you're not seeing that, but there still could be other reasons why, you see that same result. I think it's really fascinating, and it's something that we can take advantage of hopefully this year as we power towards betting college player props, which will be exciting. We'll talk more about that later. Let's do this real quick. Let's go. There's one prop that I had that I meant to mention last week that I really like. And as the resident college to pro guru here, I kind of want your take on it. You ready for this?
Okay.
On DraftKings, our good friends, there are props. Now, the limits are small, but we're here for the thought and the education, where you can bet on who the number 1 draft pick is in the draft next year. Sam Howell is the favorite at plus 225. Spencer Rattler's 3-1. Kayvon Thibodeau is plus 450. Malik Willis is plus 750. Matt Corral plus 1,000. JT Daniels and Brock Purdy also 10-1. Keaton Slovis 12-1, as is Derek Stingley Jr. I'm not even going to read the rest at this point. Emory Jones 16-1. What sticks out to you there?
Well,
because there are two things.
Howell, I don't think should be favored over Rattler. I think this year
that was number 1 for me.
I like UNC. I've made some bets on them, but they don't have the receivers that they had last season. They don't have the running backs they had last season. Running backs matter more in college than they do in the NFL. And he kind of but at the same time, this guy was the first. He kind of strikes me as like a Baker Mayfield type, but Baker Mayfield was the first overall pick.
Interesting. You should say that, because right now for 40% off, you can go get the PFF 2022 NFL Draft Guide, and in there, Mike Renner's great. Mike Renner's fantastic, and every year
he's okay.
Tries to get better. Well, I know he's not going to listen to this because he's on PTO, and also is Mike Renner, but I'm going to tell you this. I challenged him this year. I said, Mike, it was good. The draft guide was good last year.
Yeah, it was okay.
It ain't great yet. I want great comps. I want you to put a lot of thought into the comps for these guys, because it's so easy to relate. It really is. If you have a good comp, there's a reason people like them. So Sam Howell's comp in here is Baker Mayfield. I think the combination of the fact that he will remind people of Baker Mayfield and the fact that Mitch Trubisky once played at UNC, there is just no shot that Sam Howell is going to be not no shot, but like there's no way he should be the favorite. Seeing Baker Mayfield execute Kevin Stefanski's offense, I think is going to make very clear that you need that person there. Seeing Spencer Rattler do his thing in terms of the ability to make plays outside of structure is going to that's his number one win where he wins. That's going to tell teams, oh, our team sucks. Who's going to come in and elevate it? It's going to be Spencer Rattler. So I like Rattler at 3-1. By the way, you should go check out Rattler's comp in here. For me, it inspires a lot of excitement. I'm not sure it will for some other people, but I encourage you to go check it out in the draft guide. I think there's one other one, though, that has some value here.
And I'm looking at this player's college pro projections right now. At 20-1.
Yes.
I'm taking a Chanticleer.
Oh, my goodness.
And I'm taking Grayson McCall.
My Lord. Really?
Yeah.
Talk to me.
I mean, Grayson McCall was...
You're like the number one Chanticleers fan, by the way.
I am. It's a great mascot. He was great last season. They're favorites to win their conference. They didn't lose a game last year till their bowl game. He is going again 20-1. Like, look, Sam Howell at 225-1. You might as well burn your money, right? Like, here's a question I'll ask. What is going to be the odd? Like, let's say it's December 1st. Is the odds to be the number one draft pick going to be plus 200 or shorter for the guy who's the favorite?
Maybe for Howell?
Well, no. Like, let's say Rattler balls out because I like Rattler.
The favorite. I see what you're saying. I could see Rattler being minus money at some point.
Okay, but 225 is pretty damn close.
Yeah, it is.
Like you're if it's up in the air. Like, remember what Murray's number was, right? Like, you can get that at a plus price. Like, you're getting dog shit prices for basically anybody that's not 20-1 or more, right? Because what was Burrow? Tua was a lock until freaking December of 2018. So on and so forth. So you have to look, I think, further on, and we as a society are not above taking a quarterback from not only a non-Power 5 school, but
incredible, as
your favorite team has shown, a FCS school with a high draft pick. And I think Grayson McCall
is that guy.
Again, I think it's going to be Rattler, but you can't pay me to take 3-1, right? Malik Willis plays for Liberty. They're barely they've been barely a Division I football team for 10 years.
Yeah.
Kayvon Thibodeau is not a quarterback. Matt Golden Corral, are you telling? He's going to get pounded by Alabama when they play.
Yeah, that one is incredible.
JT Daniels, you think they're going to, when's the last time somebody from the West won the Heisman?
JT Daniels has some flaws.
No,
too.
JT Daniels is on Georgia now, right?
Right.
Yeah, but anybody that's going to try to go up against Alabama that's not in an LSU type team.
Going to be rough. I think the other long shot that I would bet would be Emory Jones.
I don't hate that either. We saw that Kyle Trask did really well in that offense, and he's not that good of a player. But
he doesn't have a ton of, obviously, a lot of weapons left. But you think about the type of player that's winning in the NFL today. But that's why, to me, I think it's absurd that Rattler is 3-1 and Howell is plus 2.
Yeah, I think that's a fair call out.
I'm gonna bet.
Go Shants.
I'm gonna bet Rattler.
Go Shants.
All right, recommendations. You ready?
Yeah.
You want to go first?
No, you go first.
I have two. My first recommendation is that everyone should go follow Eric on Facebook. You showed me a picture today. There were multiple things. There were socks, Crocs, 80 pounds less weight.
Mm-hmm.
And what I found the most interesting about this picture was a necklace.
I used to rock puka shell type of. Yeah.
I'm actually
not 80 pounds,
speechless.
by the way. It's more like 40. But yeah,
you look very thin in the picture. I'm not saying that you don't look svelte now. I'm saying you look really skinny in the picture.
I was my post football, my going straight into being a poor grad student out of like losing football weight was like very good for the waist.
Yeah, the waistline. But the puka shell necklace, which you can barely spot at that resolution.
Yeah, but you were looking. You were looking.
Well, it really sticks out from the shirt. Anyways, people should go follow you.
You
on
were
Facebook
looking
so
for
see this
like
picture.
You have like a very good like douche
meter.
Yeah,
Okay.
like you
What's
like
the
lock
most-
in on the douchiest thing that somebody's doing.
So by the puka shell necklace is up there in terms of douchiest things in people's past. Is that it for you? Because I think that's hard to beat.
I've worn a visor before. I feel like that has some douchiness to it.
I'm going to take you one better. All right. I'm going to give you one better. In high school, I owned and wore with amazing frequency a visor that wasn't just a visor. It was a visor that had a headband.
Yeah, like the Steve DeBerg. Like
It was, I cannot be more embarrassed for myself. Now, luckily, I transitioned out of that before even leaving high school. Thank the Lord. But look, I'm only making fun of you because I've done worse.
I think
The puka shells are incredible. Anyways, here's my second recommendation. That was the real one. My second recommendation, which I actually don't think is particularly new, but if you needed another person to push you over the edge, the Formula One documentary on Netflix is awesome. I actually watched intentionally a Formula One race today. I tried to bet it. I couldn't find anything like anywhere, which is unfortunate, and that's a conversation for another time. Formula One is absolutely fascinating. The races are compelling, and the documentary makes it so much more interesting to watch the races. I would definitely go check that out.
very good. You generally don't have time you don't make time to like watch things.
I'm one of those people that needs like 20 people to be like, that I respect, to be like, hey, go watch this. And I had like 3 or 4 people like in the last week tell me that they loved it, and it's a good one.
All right, very cool. This book was very cool in that this person has a very similar path to sports that I did. It's written by a gentleman named David Sumter, who is a math professor.
Fort Sumter?
Fort, yeah, middle name Fort. He wrote a book called Soccermatics, Mathematical Adventures in the Beautiful Game. That was very, very good, especially for somebody who is mostly a novice like me. He quoted a passage from Leah Edelstein-Cachette's mathematical biology book that I used to teach out of back in the day. Like it was a very, very fun read, a very easy read as well. I like that, and as we start to sort of think more about soccer and stuff, like obviously got to talk a better game than I currently do. So it was a good book in that regard as well.
Yeah, you need to get more acclimated with the footy nomenclature.
I do a good job of saying American football when I'm talking to a soccer person instead of just saying, "Oh, this is what we do in football."
That's your level that you've gotten to.
Look,
incredible.
I mean, I once wore a puka shell necklace, George.
Yeah,
the
you
path
got a long
is
ways
long.
to go. We got a long ways to go.
Long.
Look, I'm a soccer novice as well, but I'm on the. Actually, this reminded me of something. You remember I recommended Blinkist a little while ago?
Yep, I have it now.
One of my biggest pain points with them is I want books like the one you just mentioned. A lot of the books on there right now, and I don't have a solution for this, but it's like I can kind of guess like what I'm gonna end up listening to based on what they have, and I don't know. I would really appreciate someone that works there to figure out, like, I would listen to an automated voice give me spark notes on a book like that. That's my like. I would lower my level of like, I need someone with a beautiful voice, like reading things beautifully. Anyways, that's
Blinkist was a very good recommendation, but you do have to tolerate the fact that like the majority of the books on there are going to be either like self-help's the wrong word, but like how to manage people,
a lot of that.
It's sort of like the businessy books more so than the sciencey books, and you just have to tolerate that. If you want to read a science book, you have to read the whole thing.
I've listened to some good history things on there. What else have I listened to? I listened to one that was like about diet, like how to eat healthy, and it was hilarious because it was like the most basic shit. It was like, don't eat shit. And I was like, okay, I already don't do that, but like I was hoping you could take me to the next level. Anyways, that's been our podcast. Wednesday is going to be a lot of fun. We're going to recruit some great people to do this draft with us. Thank you for hanging out. We love you all. Peace.